in this thing. Okay. Another day. Another day. What is today? I don't even know. March something. 13th? What's today? I think it's the 13th. I'm gonna read the 13th anyways. Creative endurance. In contemplating work on mastery, I realized it presented quite a challenge. I had known from previous books that near the end of the writing process, I would often become so exhausted that the writing could suffer. I believe many writers tend to peter out halfway through their projects, overwhelmed by the complexity and the lack of origination of their material. I decided to treat it like a marathon and to find a way to build up endurance for a long slog. So I decided to up my exercise routine. I normally exercise every day, but I would increase the times and distances ever so slightly. At a certain point, I knew if I could reach a plateau in which I did not feel any more tired with this increase. Blech. I would stay at the plateau level for the entire length of the project. In sports such as long-distance cycling, this kind of training helps build up endurance levels. It is better to stay at a plateau for a period of time rather than keep increasing the workout. I wanted to see if this would translate to more consistent energy levels in my work. In the last few months, when the looming deadline made the work even harder than before, I noticed that I was considerably calmer, better able to handle the stress, and that I had reservoirs of energy to draw upon for the long hours. I came to the conclusion that the mind and the body are so intertwined that it is impossible to separate out the effects on us. Feeling energized influences our mood, which influences our work in very direct ways. And feeling confused or disorganized in our work can have a terrible effect on us physically as well. Daily law, creating anything worthwhile is like a marathon and you must train for it. The mind-body connection. The idea of plateauing or maintaining a plateau, that's interesting. I like that. And then this chapter, I'm starting in this book, Avoid the Snares of Groupthink, the Command and Conquer Strategy. The problem in leading any group is that people inevitably have their own agendas. If you are too authoritarian, they will resent you and rebel in silent ways. If you were too easygoing, they will revert to their natural selfishness and you will lose control. You have to create a chain of command in which people do not feel constrained by your influence yet follow your lead. Put the right people in place, people who will enact the spirit of your ideas without being automatons. Make your commands clear and inspiring, focusing attention on the team, not the leader. Create a sense of participation, but do not fall into groupthink, the irrationality of collective decision-making. Make yourself look like a paragon of fairness, but never relinquish unity of command. 33 Strategies of War, that's what that's from. Interesting. Groupthink. Groupthink is the tendency for whole groups to fall in line with any kind of ideology or mental dynamic, whether it be religion. Religion is a form of groupthink. Politics is a form of groupthink. Just identifying with the group instead of the individual is basically what groupthink is about. We're all fall prey to that. And there are people that prey on others knowing that the mind is easily led. So you gotta be careful with that. So, plateauing and groupthink. Where are my glasses? Okay. That's my drink. Alright, almost ready to go here. Let's see. Screw it. It's time. Let's do it. Get warmed up and ready to go. But yeah, a lot of people fall into that groupthink only because they don't want to. They have a. The humans don't like to be singled out for thinking different. It's natural and normal, I guess. I do not suffer from this. Matter of fact, I kind of. I don't want to say I prefer. Yeah, I guess I do. I prefer the lone wolf kind of, not the nail that sticks out kind of mentality. That's me. That's why I thrust my mind into all of this odd kind of tinfoil hat thinking and wild conspiracy theory stuff. It's just, for me, it's fun. Because everybody else is thinking this. If they're thinking one thing, alright, I'm going to entertain different thoughts. It's not that I disagree with them. It's just more like, alright, you guys got that covered. I'm going to explore over here for a bit. See what happens. See what comes out of this. Like with the pandemic, that was pretty much, I heard what everybody was saying and I took it into consideration. But once you come across other information, you're like, okay, now we have other information to consider. And I saw what everybody else was willing to do, and I was like, okay, well, that's fine, but this other information is saying otherwise, and it seems a little bit more credible, so I'm just gonna hang out over here. It's gonna be hot today. I can feel it already. It's not even very cool this morning. But yeah, ever since my mind had an upgrade, I tend to purposely look towards alternative information sources. That's mainly why I listen to podcasts. I'm actually kind of surprised people don't listen to podcasts the way I do, or as often as I do, or to as many as I listen to. Like after the pandemic and all the false information that was pushed intentionally through all the major news outlets about social distancing and masks and the vax. And I'm surprised anybody wants to hear anything they have to say. And we have all these global conflicts going on. Iran being the most recent one. I'm surprised anybody trusts what they have to say. I don't even know what to be honest. I have no idea what I should. Well, that's not true because the podcasts I listen to tell me what all the mainstream news outlets are saying. But then they give me what they're hearing and what the news isn't saying, which is what happened in the pandemic. Yeah, that truck's lights are fantastically bright. So here we go again. It's another situation where they're trying to create groupthink. Iran bad, Iran enemy. They have everybody at work was asking me whether or not California is going to get hit with nukes, because I guess that was reported. Right away, everybody gets scared. But I like when that book talks about leadership. cultivation of team thinking. There's the difference between group think and the motivational thought of the team dynamic. So when it comes to a team, when it comes to a team, you're trying to accomplish a goal. There's some sort of objective to point your team at and to attain. But with groupthink, the goal is the singular thought of the group for that to be attained. And that's when brainwashing, kind of like propaganda style informational dissemination comes in. That is the goal, to get the group to think one thing. And if that's pointed at a worthy goal, I guess that's a good thing. Especially when it comes to military strategy. We gotta take that hill. Alright. We want the group to think in a certain way. Everybody playing their part in order to attain the goal, the objective. I guess to a certain degree, both situations are one and the same. Because from the mainstream media's news during the pandemic, it was like, everybody's got to get this jab. So this is what we all have to think. So it's like one of those things. It's like fire. You can cook your meal or you can burn your house down. It just depends on how you're using it. Girlfriend says I sound nuts in these videos. I think that's hilarious. She's the only one really watching them, so I don't know. I only have that feedback. I think I sound fine. Then again, the whole idea of talking to yourself while you're driving is kind of nuts. But I mean, I know I'm talking to a video camera. It's like a monologue for half an hour. Other people do this on their podcasts. So, I thought that was funny though. I'm giving you feedback, I'm trying to help you out so people don't think you're crazy. I don't care. I'm crazy. I prefer to think of myself in the rarefied group of crazy people that like the first people that set out to cross the ocean thinking there's land over there somewhere. People like, you are crazy. or I'm gonna build a machine that flies in the air. You are crazy. Or what else? I'm sure people thought Nikola Tesla was crazy. Alexander Graham Bell, all the great thinkers and inventors. Am I saying I'm as great as them? No. But I think I have the kind of, well, I'm not afraid to be thought of as being, I'm not afraid to think different thoughts. Right, that was an Apple slogan at one time, think different. Check. I got that down. Thinking different. This guy wants to drive slow with me, 60 miles an hour. I like it. Oh, he's getting off. What else? I don't know. That's it. I had heard something yesterday that I wanted to talk about this morning, and I cannot remember what it was, and it's bugging the heck out of me. I don't know. See if it comes to me. You know that daily law about the plateauing? Reaching a high plateau and maintaining that for a while before you increase again? That builds up endurance. mental endurance, anyways, for whatever it is that you're doing. That's kind of how I acclimated myself to like cold showers, really. And once you reach that like mental plateau, you kind of start to enjoy it. That's what you start to try to look for. Is that level of mental endurance. I kind of like that. To be honest, I kind of feel like I've kind of plateaued myself at, like right now in life. Like it feels like I need another challenge. But I don't know what or in what form. I don't know. I think that's why I started doing these videos. I felt like I needed to start doing something else. You know, this job I'm at, it's okay, but it's like, whatever, it's just security. You know, it's a steady job. And I think the industry is worthy of my attention and time. You know, medical devices, somebody's benefiting from this. You know, in a profound way is what I mean. You know, it's not like working at the grocery store where you know people benefit from food, but it's like someone's hearing is going to be like given back to them. That's profound. What is this truck doing? You are taking up 2 lanes, sir. 2 lanes. What are you doing? Back over. Feels a little windy. Trucks are in the road. Trucks in the fast lane. Looks like they're getting back over. Yep, pretty quiet on this video, and I don't care. Nobody's watching. big boy bus. That's crazy. I know what I wanted to talk about after all this quietness. What was it? There was a post on Instagram having something to do with, I don't even remember what the post was, but the topic of discussion in the comment section was like God and religion. And I'm always like, I guess I understand how people can be turned off by the idea of God because of religion. I get that. But to simply say there's no such thing as God because of how poorly religions can represent that idea is always baffling to me. like, 'cause there's like a little voice in my head that still says, yeah, but there's only a 50% chance that you're right. Oh, hell. Lane is closed. Right? If there's no God, and I do believe there's one, but it turns out there's not, then there's nothing to lose. But if, like, someone doesn't believe in God and it turns out there is, I mean, I don't know. It just seems like you chose poorly. Right? Because, like, 50-50, that's 50% chance, that's a coin flip. Like, what in life that's of importance would you bet on a coin flip? Right? Would you gamble your house away on a coin flip? Or your car? Or your life? On a coin flip, right? Heads, I live. Tails, I die. Who would do that? This doesn't make any sense. And that's what it kind of feels like you're doing by just casting aside the idea that there's some sort of creator. And I'm not saying that, you know, if you don't believe in it and you're wrong, it's like instant hell. I don't know. Who am I to judge on that? But I was telling this one guy in the comment section, he's like, there has to, you know, the clumsiness of religion aside, you know, the core belief of those religions is the idea of a creator or some sort of first cause is the phrase I like to use. There has to be some sort of first cause, you know, the initial movement of energy to create whatever this experience is. Because I asked them, you know, what is this experience that you wake up to every morning? You know, where do you think this comes from? It can't come from nothing. You know, if you want to trace it all, you know, all this talk about evolution, okay, you have to trace it back to an initial something. And evolution only seems to really kind of address the subject of like material matter. But the idea of like consciousness that's a whole different kind of realm to speculate in. Like, where does that come from? Where does the consciousness come from of, you know, sentient beings? And then when you delve into like quantum theory and the subatomic particles and all that stuff, it seems like there's a level of consciousness on that level also. You know, it may not be as complex, but it's there. And anybody listening to this that doesn't understand what I'm talking about, look up the double slit experiment. I believe it's in the field of quantum theory that this was conducted. Like, that seems to point out that there is some sort of level of consciousness on the subatomic level. So that's what I was just telling this guy. You know, it's like, you know, you're judging religion based on the haphazard use of the humans over the documented history of humanity. And if you're going to do that, well, yeah, of course religion looks like a terrible thing. But put all that to the side and just look at what the religion is actually, the core of it. It's all about like a creator. You know, there might be variations of how they express what this creator may or may not be, but there's still a bulk of what it all is creation. You know, something can't come from nothing. Right? Can't conjure things up out of thin air. So I don't know. That's how I approach it. I try not to give any kind of specific answers because I have none. I have more questions than answers. But when it comes to like that subject, when it comes to like God and, you know, that line of thinking, that's where I sit. There's something. Right? Here we are in this thing again. Alright, I've made it safely to my destination. And that was whatever that was. Let's go to work.